Hey friends, welcome back to the encouragement experiment. Last episode, we talked about how God uses interruptions as invitations and how being willing and available positions us for divine moments. But there's another side to this as well, because it's possible to be available yet completely unaware. Have you ever missed something obvious because you were distracted, or walked right past someone who you knew? You drove an entire route and barely remembered how you got there? Maybe you nodded through a conversation but couldn't repeat a word that was said. Yeah, yes, you were there, but you weren't really there. See, that's how many of us move through life with God: present but unavailable, busy but unaware, doing for him but not listening to him. Let's go back to Mark chapter 5. Looking at verse 30, it says, "Immediately Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, 'Who touched my clothes?'" Again, an amazing moment. Thousands of people pressing in around him. There's noise everywhere, hands reaching, disciples talking, feet shuffling through the dust. And yet, in all of that chaos, he noticed one touch. He heard something the crowd couldn't hear. You see, that's awareness. That's spiritual attentiveness. When power left him, Jesus didn't panic. He perceived. He was tuned in to his Father that he recognized as a divine movement in the middle of this human madness. See, here's the truth. If you want to recognize God's interruptions, we have to learn to hear his whisper over the world's volume. Most of us don't miss God because he isn't speaking. We miss him because there's too much noise competing for the same frequency. We scroll, we schedule, we self-diagnose, we strategize, but rarely do we see ourselves. Look at Psalm 46:10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness isn't weakness. Stillness is awareness. When Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" his disciples thought it was absolutely ridiculous, which I would have too. They said, "You see the crowd pressing against you and you ask, 'Who touched me?' Like, what are you even talking about?" In other words, Jesus, that's impossible to know. But see, it wasn't, because awareness isn't about what you see, it's about what you sense. Have you ever had that nudge before? The feeling that you should text someone, you should call someone, check in, or even pray in this moment? That's what awareness feels like. It's often inconvenient, it's rarely dramatic, but always divine. And here's the thing: God doesn't shout to compete with our chaos. He whispers to invite our attention. So the question is, are you tuned in? Think of an old school radio. Yes, we're taking it back this far. You twist the dial slowly until the static fades and the clear signal comes through. See, that's what prayer, scripture, and quiet time do for your spirit. They tune you in. The static? See, that's the noise of our culture, fear and busyness. And if you stay on static too long, you'll start thinking that God went silent, when really you just stopped tuning in. See, being listening and aware means we live expectant for God to move at any time. We don't walk through the day assuming nothing divine will happen. We walk assuming that anything might. That's why awareness begins with expectancy. Let me say something that's likely going to challenge you. If you never expect God to interrupt you, you probably won't recognize him when he does. Because awareness is faith with its eyes open. Now, okay, I'll get practical for a second. How can we cultivate awareness like Jesus did? I would say there are probably three, likely more, but three daily rhythms that would help us live tuned in. And the first is create margin for the silence. If your day's packed from sunrise to sleep, you leave no space for whisper moments. Awareness requires margin. It's in the quiet drive, the shower prayer, the early morning walk that the Spirit nudges your heart. I encourage you, ask yourself, where can I build breathing room for God in my schedule? The second thing would be stay present where your feet are. Jesus didn't rush through crowds. I had a pastor say about Jesus is that he had slow feet. He noticed people. See, awareness dies where distraction lives, right? Put the phone down at the dinner table. Look someone in the eyes. Sometimes the miracle you're praying for is standing right in front of you, waiting to be noticed. And then the third thing I would say, respond immediately to those nudges. The woman's healing happened because she reached out. Jesus's recognition happened because he responded. Awareness isn't complete until it becomes action. When you sense the Spirit prompting, don't second guess it. Send the text, pray the prayer, give the word. You may never know the full impact, but God does. When Jesus stopped, the entire crowd stopped with him because awareness is contagious. When one person paying attention to God can shift the entire atmosphere around them. What if you become that person in your workplace, your family, your church, the one who notices what everyone else is overlooking, the one who catches the quiet move of God in the middle of a loud life? See, that's what it means to be listening and aware. And I mean, let's be honest. That's hard because being aware means slowing down, and slowing down in this world feels unproductive. But maybe that's the point. See, God's voice doesn't compete for your speed. It calls you to his pace. You can't walk with Jesus at a running speed. See, in Mark chapter 5, while Jesus is listening to the Father, Jairus gets that devastating news. Your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore. See, if Jesus had rushed ahead, he might have missed the woman's miracle. If he had stayed stuck, he might have missed the girl's resurrection. But because he listened and stayed aware of the Spirit movement, he moved at exactly the Father's rhythm. Awareness kept him aligned, awareness kept him peaceful, and awareness kept him effective. And it will do the same for you and me. So maybe today God is saying, slow your feet, soften your heart, and sharpen your hearing, because the Spirit speaks today through Scripture, through people, and through interruptions. Sometimes the interruption is the message. Next week, we're going to wrap up this series by talking about what sustains us when interruptions test our faith, how to remain faithful and faith-filled when it feels like God's timing has stopped, because awareness, it gets you listening, but faith keeps you walking. See you next time.